Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. We have somebody very inspiring on our show today. Today we have Dami Mgbemena. She's the founder of Student Inspired. Dami is the founder of Student Inspired, which is an organization that coaches students to maximize their academic potential. She has always been deeply drawn to finding ways to make students' lives easier and helping them succeed in school. She transitioned from a career as project manager to become an academic life coach. She specializes in coaching teenage students to develop the study skills and habits that they absolutely must have to achieve academic excellence. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience to help students achieve success in school. She is a Nigerian-Canadian mother of two, and she's privileged to have studied and worked in 3 different continents: Africa, Europe, and North America. She has multiple degrees in architecture, project management, and business administration. And I must add, from a personal perspective, that I've known Dami for a few years, and it's very inspiring to see what she does to help teenagers not only succeed in school, but to learn lifelong skills that will take them through their lives in terms of maximizing their time, really learning how to go deep in their studying, not just to get a great grade, but to really immerse themselves in the study. And I think some of the skills she brings to the table are very unique and something that most children that go through the training will certainly pick up lifelong skills. So with that, we're bringing Dami on today, and we're going to be having a conversation with her, breaking down some of the myths, some of the facts around what it takes for a teenager in today's day and age to actually be successful, to weed out a lot of the distraction, and to be able to stay focused on learning what they need to learn, and not just about the content, but the style of learning. Like I mentioned earlier, I've had personal experience with this. My daughter actually went through the training, the study boot camp training with Dami. And every time I would ask her to teach me what she learned, it was very fascinating to see her be able to summarize and tell me what she had learned. And you could see there were skills she was taking away and she was going to be deployed in her own study habits. So with that said, we're going to welcome Dami now. Dami, hello.
Hello, Yetty.
How are you doing?
To be here. Very well, thank you.
Awesome. Great to have you here today. Okay, so first question is, can you share with our listeners your professional background and what inspired you to transition to academic life coaching?
Okay, so my professional background is in project management. I worked as a project manager for the government of British Columbia in Canada for several years before I transitioned to academic life coaching. And my inspiration comes from my own personal academic journey and the fact that I have a passion for helping students succeed in school. So let me explain what that means. My background, I'll give you a bit more context for what I mean. So over a 10-year period, I attended 4 universities in 4 different countries. I studied architecture, I studied in Ghana and Nigeria. I studied architecture in Ghana and Nigeria. I got a master's degree in project management from the University of Leeds in the UK, and I also studied business administration in Canada. So along the way, I had my own fair share of academic struggles, and it wasn't smooth sailing all through. So there were times where my grades would be high, and there were times when my grades would be lower than I expected. But what I really wanted for myself as a student was to be a straight A student all the way. I wanted my grades to reflect my true potential. So I would often ask my friends and my teachers for strategies and tips. And after some time, I started just paying attention to what was working for me and what was not working. So by year 8 of this 10-year journey, I had finally learned the strategies and the techniques that I needed to study effectively and prepare effectively for my exams. So that means that I was able to get onto the honors roll for high academic achievement eventually. for a period of years before I stopped my post-secondary education. So this was a trial and error process that was full of stress for me. And it wasn't about my intelligence, because for sure I knew that I was intelligent, but there were just times where my grades did not reflect my intelligence. So after all this, my time spent in school, it would often come to my mind that I should help other students. I should transfer this information to other students. So one day in 2018, I just decided to go online and see what it is that is available out there. How can I help students succeed? And I went and I typed in help students succeed, and I came across a website that was training academic coaches. And once I spoke to the lady, I just thought, this is for me. I jumped in and I decided to get my 1-year training coach training program with her. And I became a certified academic coach. So that's really the summary of how I became an academic life coach. And in terms of just deciding to transition, I saw that I got quite a lot of fulfillment from doing this work. I really wanted to spend some time working with students to help them improve their study skills, their mindset towards their academics, and get those study habits that help them excel in school and set up for lifelong success. So that's it for now.
Fantastic. I want to ask you then, what has your global perspective, how has that influenced or enhanced your approach to academic coaching? Because you mentioned that you lived in 3 different continents, so far, and you've been in school across several continents as well. So it'd be interesting if you can share with us, what are some of your, let me rephrase that. How does your global perspective enhance your approach to academic coaching?
All right, so certainly the experience I've gathered in these 3 different continents, going to different schools, has enhanced my approach in that, first of all, one of the key things that I learned is that skill and competence, when somebody is highly skilled, when they're highly competent, they gain respect and acceptance. And that was important as a minority in the different countries that I was living in, that I be accepted and respected. So I knew that one of the ways to do that was to be highly skilled and competent. And so many of the students I work with are schooling in the US, in the UK, or somewhere in Europe. And they do oftentimes feel like, oh, I'm in the minority here, right? So one of the things that we do is to build their skill so that they can build their competence and be more confident. The more confident they are, the more excellent they are at what they are doing, the more recognition they get from friends and teachers. So that allows them to have an easier time in the school they are in. Another thing that I had to learn was adaptability and resilience, overcoming difficulties in a space that is not my home base, pretty much. I often felt like fish out of water. Maybe they are telling jokes that I don't understand, or they are introducing new concepts that I haven't heard before. So I had to learn how to adapt to the various situations that I found myself and be resilient enough to overcome whatever difficulties that came my way. So one of the things I emphasize in my coaching approach with students is that ability to adapt. When something new comes, when a teacher that you're not familiar with comes, let's say one of your teachers left to a new school and a new teacher comes and they come with their own teaching methods and their own approach. How are you able to adapt to this new style of doing things? We work on that. We build their resilience to overcome the difficulty. Sometimes they come with things like, oh, this teacher is not as organized as my former teacher. I don't understand their methods. But regardless of that, and all the challenges that they may face, we have to work on overcoming difficulties. So we learn that. Another thing as well that I learned during this process was that time consciousness and promptness. There's no African time or Nigerian time when you are not in Africa. So getting to appointments on time, if you're not able to get there on time, then sending regrets in advance that you won't be able to get there on time. After the few times where I missed the train by 1 minute or missed the bus by 1 minute, I realized that getting to places promptly was very, 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 very important. And it was even, it was even a norm in the UK or in Canada for you to arrive at your appointments on time. So one of the things that we also do is my students, I coach them through Zoom, so they have to arrive to their appointments on time. Sometimes, things happen and they can't, but generally over time, we work on that time consciousness. They know that if they're not able to attend, it's their responsibility to inform me and try to inform me in good time. And even taking that time consciousness into the work that they do, knowing that they need to start their study on time, knowing that there's a required length of time that they need to be practicing for each of their subjects. So we really focus on understanding how to utilize time very well. So we work on their study schedule for the week and for weeks in advance. So at every point in time, when they come back from school, they know exactly what they are meant to be doing. They know when they are supposed to start their study time. They know the subjects that they're supposed to study. And finally, one of the big things as well is just an appreciation for our diversity and individuality, because we're all different. We have unique approaches and we see things differently. So we have our individual strengths and weaknesses. And as a coach, that's helped me to be more flexible, be more patient with my students, and be more empathetic to the individual struggles that they have and the approaches that they might have to doing their work. I'm not set on them doing things exactly the way I've prescribed it, as long as they can give me an alternate solution or a better solution that will give them the same results that we are after. So that's in a nutshell how my global perspective has enhanced my approach to academic coaching.
Fantastic, great. Now we're moving a little bit into the space of, the parents, about parenting and, preparing their children to succeed academically. So many parents notice that their bright children perform inconsistently. So from your experience, what are some of the common reasons behind this?
Yetty, thank you for that question. I think that's a really important question, and there's a lot to say here. There are many reasons that students perform inconsistently, and I want to sum them up into 3 broad categories so that it's easy for us to remember the information that I'm going to share today. So these 3 categories are, first of all, one of the major reasons why students struggle or perform inconsistently is that they lack the right study skills, the skills that they need when they are studying to be able to help them study effectively and efficiently. They lack those skills. We'll talk about that more in detail. So they don't have proper study habits. Many students lack proper study habits. So that means that they're not studying consistently, they're not studying daily, and they're not studying as much as they should study to get the required information in their head. The third thing is many students have a fixed mindset towards their academics. They think that, oh, I'm just not good at science or I'm not good at math. Some of them even say things like, I'm not smart, I'm not intelligent. Some of them don't even see the point in working hard for their grades and putting in their best effort in school. So this becomes limiting factors for them. And it seriously affects their grades and does not allow them get to that full potential that they have. So let's break down what kinds of skills I'm talking about when I'm talking about skills. There are different skills here. As an academic life coach, there's the study skills that we focus on, and we also focus on life skills. Periodically, we will talk about academic skills. Academic skills are skills like reading, writing, arithmetic skills, thinking skills. The students usually should build those skills from the content and the coursework that they are given in school. Sometimes they are lacking in these academic skills. There's a deficiency somewhere in either their reading, their writing, their comprehension, that makes it difficult for them to understand, assimilate the information, and reproduce it or think through what they've learned and apply it in a different context. So that usually can be one of the major reasons that students struggle. The other thing is study skills. For study skills, we have skills like note-taking. Many times parents don't even know that note-taking is a skill, but we have to learn the art of effective note-taking. Many students may not take notes in class, or even when they do, they just write verbatim everything that the teacher has written down, and that's the end of it. When it gets to time for exams, they may read the notes, or they may not read, depending on the competence of the students. But for the ones that do read the notes, some of them that struggle are not doing enough active learning. And what this means is they are not transforming the notes into their own words, into their own thoughts, through using practices like using a mind map, for instance, to summarize the information they've learned, but also not only to summarize, to consolidate the information. So they're supposed to do extra work to go online, to research information that they are now going to add to what they've learned to broaden their and deepen their understanding. And so a tool like a mind map is a tool that is a note-taking tool that students can use, but many of them don't even know about. There are also other effective note-taking methods that help students summarize information properly. For instance, one of the ones that we teach in the Study Boost Camp can be the rule of 1/3. So when a student comes back from school, part of their revision for the day is for them to summarize everything that they've learned into 1/3 of that information. And the art of summarizing that information makes the students engage more deeply with the material, number one. When they do engage deeply, the second thing that happens is that they are more likely to store that information in their long-term memory. And the third thing that will happen is they are better able to recall the information in a test and exam situation. So that's a study skill that students lack. Another study skill that students may lack, or it might not be at a very high level, is the organization. How do they organize their schoolwork? Many of them don't even know that they're supposed to be getting their resources together. You know, these days now, students have information on Google Classroom. They have several links that they need to go to. They have study apps that they can use to get more information. So information is here, there, and everywhere, and even in their notebooks and in their textbooks. Students need to do additional work to get all that information organized so that they can access the information easily when they are studying. Number one, first of all, they even know where everything is. And then during their revision time, they've organized all the information such that they can now use it to revise effectively. So organization is a study skill that many students lack. So one of the causes why students may struggle underperform is lacking because they lack organization skills, right? So the other thing as well is many students too do not do enough revision and practice. So when we talk about what revision and practice should look like, practice in this case is that when you come back from school as a student, you should be taking your books, reviewing what you've learned, and then attempting to answer questions. And there will be different kinds of questions that the student should attempt. Some of them will be simple MCQ questions. And then we go up higher until when we get to essay questions. And students should have a process for answering these questions, practicing their answers, testing their knowledge. So students struggle because they lack revision skills. So that's another study skill that students lack. Another study skill, the fourth one I'll share, because they are quite a number, but I won't go into everything today. We'll teach students these skills when they come into Study Boost Camp. So one of the things that also causes students to struggle is the fact that they don't go to their teachers for feedback. they're not asking enough questions. When they don't understand things, they just, they just try to do it on their own if they are trying, and if not, if it works out, fine. If not, they just leave it like that. So students really must engage more with their teachers and ask for help in areas where they are struggling. The teacher is there to support them, but many students don't take advantage enough of that support that is there. So for instance, one of the things that students can do is when they've answered their practice questions, they can send them to their teacher, the questions to their teacher for marking or to give them feedback on it. Or they can even just ask their teacher those difficult questions that they've come across. Okay, so by and large, many students have a poor and inefficient study process. They just don't know how to study effectively. They are not allocating enough time to their study. They are not even starting their study on time. So that means they are procrastinating. Many of them are also distracted by games, by Netflix, by their phones. So that will lead us into the conversation about habits. Many students have a bad habit of being distracted. I think that's the number one concern that parents who meet with me when they come to a strategy session to talk about academic success of their children. The number one concern that the parents bring is, my child is distracted. They're online playing games or watching Netflix on their phone. They are on the TV for several hours of the day, and they're not doing enough study. So now, because we're in this digital age, that is something that really affects student performance. And because many students use their laptops for their study and they have to go online, we can't say that they can't have a laptop or that they can't be using their device. So it means that they have to now then learn how to use their devices responsibly. And we can talk about some solutions later when we get to that. But also, one of the things that parents overlook as well is that their children have a bad habit of sleeping late and they're not getting enough sleep, they're not getting enough rest. That is something that, although it looks small, is something that can cause a cycle of poor performance. And this cycle looks like a student gets up, goes to bed, let's say they go to bed around 11, 12 at night. They get up early in the morning because they need to get dressed for school. So maybe they get up around 6 or so. They're out of the house just before 7 so that they can make it to school at 8. By the time it gets to 10 o'clock, they're already getting tired, a little bit drowsy because they haven't gotten enough rest. So they are starting to miss out on the information that is being shared gradually as the day progresses. So what that leads to is gaps in their knowledge. At times in class that they space out, they zone out, and they are not really following along completely. So you will see gaps in their notes. You will see that sometimes they miss out on instructions that the teacher has given, or they will miss out on important information that has been shared in the class. So sleeping early, having a good sleep hygiene, and even a consistent sleep time is one of the things that students need to do to pull up their performance. And yes, so sleeping late is certainly one of the things that can affect student performance. The other thing I think I mentioned briefly is the habit of procrastinating on their work. If they're supposed to start their study, let's say by 5 p.m., they say, oh, I'll still get back to it. 6 p.m., they haven't started. 7 p.m., they haven't started. Mom comes in, nags them a little bit, reminds them a little bit. Then they're like, oh, 8 o'clock, they start. 8 o'clock is late to start. By that time, many of them are even tired. They're not doing their best work anyway. They end up spending a long time on their work, and they don't even have enough time to finish some of their homework and study tasks. So maybe they can barely get through their homework for the day, but there's not enough time to even do any study. So that's one of the reasons that students struggle. Another is that while they are studying, they are not focused. Many students are distracted while they are studying. Oh, I forgot my pen somewhere. My textbook, I can't find it. And my sister came in to ask me a question. What's happening out there? You know, so there's a lot of distraction that happens when many of the students that struggle, there's a lot of distraction that happens when they are doing their study time. Sometimes they're also studying in an environment where there's noise. So the noise can also be a source of distraction for them. And some of them, in the process of even saying they go online to go and look for resources, they go down a rabbit hole of going to websites that they are not meant to go to, websites that are not even particularly relevant for the work that they are doing. They lose track and lose focus of why they've gone to that particular website. Some of them even end up watching movies or listening to music, and then that just affects their progress during their study. And if that becomes a pattern over time, it means that they are losing several minutes or hours a day that they could be using to learn to just being distracted. And over a year, that is a lot of hours of time wasted. So lack of focus during study time is one of the reasons that students struggle. Then I think I already talked about some of them, so I'll just mention them again. Like not doing enough practice questions or quizzing themselves is one. Just being disorganized is one. The one thing as well that I know that many students struggle with is that they don't believe in themselves. And now we are moving to the mindset. They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in their ability. So they struggle with low confidence. That affects their esteem. It affects the amount of effort that they put into their schoolwork. And ultimately causes them to not get the kinds of grades that they are capable of. Many students also don't have a love for learning. They're just learning because mom and dad said you have to go to school and that's what they have to do. So they just do their best to meet up with the basic requirements of what they believe that is the minimum. So they are doing the barest minimum. So they don't have this attitude of wanting to know, wanting to learn, and having a love for learning. So that in itself also allows them to not perform as well as they can. I think that one of the things that also causes students to struggle is because they do not really connect the impact of their decisions today to their future prospects for career or for even for university. Many students are not thinking about, okay, if I do well now and I get good grades, it means that I'm able to get into a very good university, and consequently, I'm also able to get a very good job. They just know that they are going to school, but they don't really understand the real reason beyond just gathering knowledge. They don't understand the real reason why they are going to school. They don't understand the idea of the fact that they have to, at some point, be independent and be able to be successful in life, take care of themselves, take care of their bills, contribute productively to the world and at their workplace or at their business. Right. So that's again one of the reasons why they're not putting in their best efforts. And then some of the students just have a negative attitude. They just don't care. They just can't be bothered. They're just like, well, why do I have to do this? Why can't I just relax and Netflix and chill? They also have the fixed mindset that even if I try, I won't do well anyway. So they are not ready to persevere. They're not ready to put in their best efforts. Now, beyond all of these things where I've talked about skill, habits, and mindsets, we know that certain students may have learning differences or difficulties that have not been diagnosed. And this can cause them to struggle significantly. And so for those students that are struggling significantly like that, it's worth checking out through a psychoeducational assessment if there's some kind of learning disability that's causing them to struggle. So that's a lot said there. And I think that that should give a lot of insight into why students underperform and why they struggle to reach the potential that the parents know that they have.
Fantastic. Thank you for that very insightful, what I call a masterclass in itself. So this brings me to my next question, which is, what are some common mistakes that parents make when trying to support their children's academic journeys? And how can they avoid these pitfalls? So with everything you said, I would summarize into that. There are 3 buckets, roughly. There's the skills buckets, right? So just study skills and skills around academic success. There's habits that children are either forming, in a positive habits or maladaptive habits that might not be adding to their overall success. And then you've also talked about mindsets, right? So that comes from somewhere, no child necessarily turns up at 14 years old with no belief in their ability to succeed in school. So a lot of these are buckets that have taken time to become what it is. So using that roughly as a framework, if you will, let's answer that question, which is, what are some common mistakes that parents make when they're trying to support their children's academic journeys? And maybe how can they try to avoid some of these pitfalls?
Okay, Yetty, thank you for your question. So let's start with the first thing there where I'm talking about skills. One of the things that parents do, that I see a lot of parents do, is focus mainly on grades. Many parents are not looking at a holistic development of their children, which will include the skills that the child is building, whether they're academic or not, maybe even in sports or in music and whatnot. A lot of parents just want their children to be a star, and they're not really thinking about how we build skills from just incompetence or not even aware of those skills to master to the level of where the children are mastering certain skills. So I think that that's one of the mistakes that parents make, because at the end of the day, when we get to a job market, many employers are looking out for certain skills in their employees. So we are now in a world where we are looking at competencies and we're looking at skills of our employees, and the skills that the students are building now are transferable skills that they will use in a workplace. So not really being intentional about the skills that we want our children to be exceptional at. We haven't really articulated that, you know what, I want my child to be very organized. I want them to be very time conscious. I want them to be resilient. We know it at the back of our minds sometimes, but we don't have the intentional steps to get them there for some of the skills. Maybe for others we do. Then in terms of also the children's mindsets, many parents too, because they focus on on grades, pardon me, they tend to compare their children to others or to themselves. But when I was in your age, when I was in school, I was able to do this and you're not able to do that. Ultimately, that reduces a child's self-esteem or a teenager's self-esteem. Even though the parent has the best intentions to motivate the teen to do better by comparing their progress to somebody else's progress, it can be discouraging to have that kind of feedback. Now, when a child also is struggling in school, it can just negatively affect them, even if the parent is telling them, you can do it, you can do it. And so that means that the parent has to put in more efforts to see where areas where their children are struggling and provide the required support. So it's support in this case might be support from the parent themselves. It can be a tutoring support. It can be getting extra help from the class teacher or from the school. It can be using applications that can help their child improve in that area of deficiency. The other thing, let's talk about structure at home. Structure at home is what helps students to build the right habits and routines. Many parents make the mistake of not putting in a firm structure. They know the word structure, but they don't know how to go about having a firm structure at home that supports their children's academic success. And really, at the simplest part, the simplest, when we break it down to what structure means in the simplest form, it's really just having a set time for certain activities. So if we are supposed to eat at a certain time, let's eat at a certain time. If we're supposed to get to school at a certain time, let's leave home at a certain time. When you're supposed to do your homework, let's know that you're supposed to do your homework from 5 to 8. And that way a parent can monitor their children's progress better. And then they can provide that extra accountability, because if your child is supposed to be studying from 5 to 8 and they are doing something else within that time, then you're sure that they're not doing the right thing. So they won't come and give you one story like teenagers like to do. I'll do it later, because everybody has agreed to a structure of what must be done at a certain time. And not having the structure in place is what causes students sometimes to use their devices excessively. They just have excessive screen time. It also causes areas of conflict and stress where there's a back and forth interaction. The parent is complaining, upset that their child isn't doing this and that. And so it causes a strain in that relationship. So parents should not make the mistake of not being very clear on what they expect from their children at the different points in time of their day. Now, for older children, they might be able to come up with their schedule by themselves, and then they review it with their parents, and it gets approved that, okay, this is fine. But just leaving them to do what it is that they want, most students will spend their time on devices these days, pretty much. That's what majority of them will do. And so it now becomes the job of the parent to enforce the structure. And enforcing means that you are checking in on them when you can, but also you are laying out what the consequences are for not following the structure. So if you're supposed to be studying and you're not studying, okay, why aren't you studying? There's no good reason for why you're not studying. The alternative, which is you are watching TV, or you are playing a game which you're not supposed to be doing in the first place, it means that on the weekend when you're supposed to be playing your game for an hour or two, then you don't get that game because you've broken the rule that we put in place. So that is something that parents can do to avoid the pitfall of not having structure at home. One of the other things that parents do that I think can be costly is that they believe that I've sent my child to a very good school, I have teachers in place to support them at home, tutors, and they should be doing well. That's not all that it takes for a child to do well. There's different schools will have its strengths and weaknesses. There might be some lapses in that particular school because no school is perfect. There may be some lapses in that particular school that don't actually support your child's academic progress. So as a parent, you must be more aware, more informed, ask questions from the teacher, ask questions from the school, know what's happening with the school curriculum, the school timetable, so that you can ensure that your child is on track and is getting the best that they can get from that school environment. So Yetty, does that answer your question?
More than answers it. Fantastic. Great, great. You've actually answered with the depth of your answers, you've definitely answered a couple of questions together. So I want us to, so this next segment of questions is going to start moving into, academic coaching and study boot camp. Some parents might never have heard of it. And I think here would be great for you to maybe focus on the difference between just getting a lesson teacher, right? And what the study boot camp, what the study boost camp and the academic coaching really means for a parent who might be hearing this for the first time. Okay. So I'm going to ask you questions now, but like this is the segment we're now moving into. So, okay. So how do you measure the success of your academic programs, and what feedback have you received from both students and parents who have gone through the through your academic coaching programs?
Okay, so Yetty, before I answer that question, I think it's important to give the parents some context about what academic coaching is and what I do as an academic coach when I work with students. So academic coaching differs from tutoring. It's not the same thing. When a student works with a tutor, the tutor is focused on content. So that means that the tutor is trying to teach math, English, and trying to teach the topics in math and English. With academic coaching, we are focusing broadly on the student's entire academic performance. So that means that when a student works with an academic coach like me, we're looking at all their subjects. We are looking at those three things majorly that we talked about: their study habits, their study skills, their study mindsets. And we put all these things together to help them improve their performance and reach their potential. So that's essentially the difference between an academic coach and a tutor. So I don't go, when I work with a student, I don't go and teach them 1 + 1 = 2, and so that they can pass math. We do some practice drills together where I can set for them certain targets for them to do practice questions or past exam questions within a specified amount of time. I can do that, and we can look at, and then we can look at the answer key together or the marking scheme together. But overall, we focus on skill development in those study skills, how to study effectively, how to study the right things, how to study your textbook very well, because sometimes students just carry their textbook and then they don't even know where the right information is in their textbook, and they're not even summarizing the information very well. I'll teach them things like using their school curriculum to study their work. So in a nutshell, that just quickly summarizes some of the things that I would do with a student in a coaching program. So I have 2 coaching programs. The one that we're discussing today is Study Boost Camp. Study Boost Camp is a 7-day training program. And in this 7-day training program, what we are focused on is giving the students a lot of information, strategies, techniques, and building the skills that they need to learn how to study effectively. We do this over a 7-day period. Then beyond this, there's also Study Boost Club. Now, this is the students that I work with on an annual basis. And annual basis is for the whole academic year, where they are now putting into practice what they've learned in Boost Camp. This is where their habits get transformed. This is where the mindset gets elevated. This is where their performance moves from average to good, from good to outstanding, because we are working over a period of time. So going to your question, Yetty, how do we measure success of our coaching programs? There are different ways that we measure success depending on the program, but let me focus particularly on Study Boost Camp, which is the 7-day process. At the end of Study Boost Camp, students who have gone through the training program should be able to repeat and teach to somebody else the core concepts that they've learned in the program. And one of the things that we ensure that they do before they leave the program is that they have a summary note that they make for themselves that itemizes the main things that they have learned in each of the 7 modules of Study Bootcamp. And each student gets to teach that to me. So once they are able to teach it and show me and prove their knowledge, then we say check, and we say that, you know what, you've gotten it. Now, in terms of measuring success for Study Boost Club, which is the annual program, we measure success in 3 ways. We start from awareness. We want to make sure that the students understand the key concepts, the key techniques and strategies that they're supposed to be using to improve their study. So we ask them the questions, they repeat it, they demonstrate it in the coaching sessions that we do. The second thing is skill development. Yes, second thing is skill development. So for the different skills that we focus on, the skills like organization, note-taking, time management, we want to make sure that the student has gone from 25% to 50%, and we have ways in which that we measure that. If they are supposed to be taking notes, are they able to consistently take their notes? First of all, that's like a level 1. Are they even taking notes in the first place? Level 2, are they starting to summarize their notes? That's one way that we measure success. Level 3, are their notes good enough for them to actually revise with, such that when they do their tests, they actually get good grades? So that's the level 3. And then is this student at the proficiency where and we're just using the note-taking skill as an example, where they are able to use various kinds of note-taking methods, for instance, the mind mapping, flashcards, Cornell system, are they chunking and clumping? So the various types. So at that point, we say that they become proficient if they're able to use those various types, and that they are able to get the good grades and good test results or good exam results from what it is that they've done. So we will do this for the different skills that we have highlighted as part of our program for Study Boost Club. Final thing, of course, is because grades are important too. Again, we're working towards the fact that we want our students to be the best that they can be. So we check on grades. We check on grades often, test grades, and end of term grades. So parents will often send the grades when they get a midterm report or an end of term report, they send it to me, and we are keeping track of. So from a term 1 to a term 3, we can see how students are able to pull their grades up in a particular subject. So we track their grades as well. So those are the 3 ways that we measure the success of our coaching programs. So essentially, we want to see the students improving, getting better, going from one level to the other, and overcoming the previous struggles that they've had.
Fantastic. That's very helpful for explaining what it is, and for parents or anybody listening to understand exactly what academic coaching is, and then specifically the 2 streams you have, which is the Study Boost Camp, and then the annual Study Boost Club. Fantastic. Now, if you can share with us maybe some of the feedback that you've gotten from some of your past clients, both students and parents, it would be helpful to maybe have a bit of a case study of people who've gone through your program, whether the 7-day club or the annual program itself, and if you can just share some of those.
Okay, so let me start with Study Boost Camp. We've had a number of students do the program now, and as part of our process, we collect students' feedback before they end the program. So we have lots of feedback from our students. Generally, there's an overwhelming positive response from the students. They are happy to hear the information that they've heard because it's new to them. Many are surprised that they didn't even know in the first place. So they do believe that the information is useful, helpful, and that it's going to help them get better grades in school. So that's, in a nutshell, the overwhelming response from the students. Many of them also say that the program was interesting and engaging, which is good feedback when you're dealing with teenagers. So Study Bootcamp is actually for 13-year-olds to 19-year-olds students in high school, and ones that are just in A levels or about to get into uni, so that at every point in time, these students know how to study effectively. So that's feedback from students. Feedback from parents, I think as a company, what we really focus on with our parents is that we stay engaged with them. We want to ensure that parents know what's going on. So we give reports and progress updates to parents for them to know what's happening. And I think that a lot of parents have appreciated knowing their children's progress. That's one of the things that the feedback that parents have given. Another feedback that parents give is that they're happy to see that their children engaged with the course and did not find it boring. They stuck to it to the end and they actually finished the course. So that's one of the feedbacks that they give. And lastly, when they ask, like Yetty mentioned initially, when they ask their child, what did you learn? If their children are able to explain what they've learned to them, and parents are able to see that shift in awareness, even in that 7-day period, that, okay, my child has actually learned certain new skills, certain new habits, even though it hasn't become a habit for them, they know that they should be making it a habit. And so parents are really pleased with the outcome of Study Bootcamp. So feedback from Study Boost Club, and just using a student as a case study. Usually, I work with students over a period of time. And one of the questions that may come from parents is, oh, why do we work for an extended period? There are different categories of students I work with. Some of the students I work with they are smart students, intelligent students, but they are performing inconsistently. They have the C, D grades and the occasional A grades. I think that's the category that majority of my students fall in. And so for these kinds of students, using one of them as an example, her name is Tisha. We worked with her, or I worked with her for a period of 2 years to get her from D in math to this term, and then the next term C in math, or even not just having the right mindset. She just wasn't engaged, she just wasn't interested in doing her best. She came from a well-to-do family, so she couldn't really connect why she had to work so hard in school. So through a lot of mindset coaching, providing feedback, support, ensuring that she was using the tools that we had provided through Study Bootcamp, she was able to actually transform her grades. Now she has switched schools, and now she's abroad in a school abroad. In the first time that she got there, she was able to be dorm prefect. She's able to join a lot of leadership clubs, and now she's consistently in the A, or almost all A's, A, B category. Most of her grades now are A. And even when she gets a B, she's so upset. I'm the one that is like, calm down, lady, you can actually get a B. So she's like, no, Miss Dami, I should have gotten a B. I should have gotten an A, rather. I shouldn't have gotten a B. I don't think the teacher marked my work well. I really put in effort. So now this child went from not caring about school, not putting their best effort, to now having this high achieving mindset, where she's now aiming for the top grades. And this student is a great example of the transformation that can happen with consistent coaching. Now, there's another group of students that I also work with. I also work with the high performing students. Many of these high performing students, they do well, but they are not exactly 100% sure what they are doing. Majority of them just rely on their intelligence because they are extra smart and they have good memory, but they can even do better. They can go to school and have less stress. They can go to school and even be more confident because now they know exactly what it is that they are doing. So what comes from these kinds of students in terms of feedback from them is, I was speaking to one of them yesterday, Michelle. Michelle is like, I did my test, it was easy. I did my biology test, it was simple. I did my physics test, it was easy. And Michelle, for one, has been commended by her school. She's in the top of her class, and she just changed schools from a school in Nigeria to a school in the UK, and she's doing exceptionally well. And mom does not provide as much support because mom is busy. So part of what I do as a coach is to get the information from my students, their progress updates, where they are, provide support, and then share that information with the parent. This is where your child is at. This is what we should do right now. For instance, in Michelle's case, we are planning towards an internship. She's gotten an internship in an interior design firm. And I said, oh, okay, you know what? Because you are this high achieving students, maybe we can look at other places as well. And perhaps you can look at consulting firms like KPMG, Deloitte, McKinsey. She's like, oh, interesting. And then we're looking into, okay, how can we get into an internship for her, trying to connect her with a mentor, a career mentor. So those are some of the benefits that come with the annual coaching. And the students certainly enjoy having the support, enjoy having access to that network where they can meet with other professionals, even the information that I share with the parents as well. In this case, where we have the Boost Club support, that's the annual coaching support, is massive, because we also look at giving recommendations about career choices, schools abroad that the students can attend based on their accomplishments. Again, not all students are made to go to Ivy League school. Some of them won't get into an Ivy League school, and that's okay. And it's not because they are not smart. It's just that there's no space for everybody in an Ivy League school. And maybe they are not yet at the point in their journey of learning and building their skills where they would thrive and do well in an Ivy League school. So as a coach, I would give a parent a recommendation about, you know what, let's consider other schools, let's consider other courses or programs that may not be as challenging as what we originally wanted to do. And the feedback from parents that I get when we give such recommendations and it turns out that it works well, the students doesn't struggle as much, is really, really encouraging. Parents are overall really happy that they can see consistent progress in their children, and that they know for sure that I care so much about their children's progress. And so I go out of my way to share the resources that they need and the information that they need and provide the support that they need. And I make myself available to parents for calls or for meetings to strategize, to give feedback or updates. And so I'll just wrap it up here, as I think I've given a bit of an overview on the feedback that I get from parents and students from the different programs. That's the Study Boost Camp, which is the 7-day training, and from Study Boost Club.
Fantastic. Very, very insightful, very clear what the benefits are and what, and I think being able to measure or visualize what potential transformation looks like based on the profile of the child. And I think what you've also done very well is to make it clear that different children will need different things based your assessment, and for example, the child who's maybe already succeeding and work is easy for them, academic work, because some are gifted with maybe extra intelligence, you can then look at how do we take that and challenge the child in another area, which so I think it's very clear what a parent, if a parent is hearing this for the first time, what is academic coaching? What is a study boost camp? I think you very clearly explained what the benefits and what, not even benefits, what the transformation looks like. And that, when we think about mindset, a growth mindset means that we're constantly learning, we're constantly improving. And when we know more and we can apply that, we can be even better. So there's no limit. Great.
Absolutely.
So I want to start moving into, because I know you have your programs coming up, when when you'll be kicking off, and how you onboard, cohorts of students, whether it's groups, whether it's ad hoc. So if you can start talking now practically about, okay, parent has heard this amazing conversation and is interested in the program, how do they get started with enrollment? How do they find you? And when is the best time potentially for a child to, get into these programs, whether it's the camp or the annual one as well?
Okay, so Study Boost Camp happens in two different formats. We do a group coaching format, and that happens typically Easter holiday and summer holiday. We also do a one-on-one coaching program that can happen during the term. When it's during the term, we don't do 7 days straight. We will do once a month to meet, or once a week over the course of a month, or 4 to 6 weeks, about, depending on the student's schedule. So one-on-one gives us a bit of flexibility to work with the students during the school term, and then accommodate their schedule, but also have them actually even start to begin to practice the skills that they've learned. So there's a benefit to that. Now, with the group coaching, we recognize that students are in school. Some of our students are in boarding school. Some of them are just really focused on academics. And we know that the holiday time is a time where we want to maximize the time that the students are at home for them to learn new skills, and also, even where possible, for them to even start using the skills that they've learned to start practicing reading ahead for their exams. So we want Study Boost Camp to be a program that is setting up children for the next either academic year or the next academic term. So for parents to get enrolled in our programs, we usually do an assessment. We ask parents to take an academic success assessment. This is a tool where a parent will answer a number of questions, which will give us an overview and also specific insights into the struggles that the student has, according to the parent's perspective anyway. So this is the parent that is taking this assessment. And from there, I would invite a parent to meet with me one-on-one in a Zoom strategy call. In that way, I'm able to discuss again one-on-one with the parent what the issues are, give some immediate feedback, give some immediate recommendations that parents can start to use at home that is specific to their child's situation. And then I can answer their questions and show them a demonstration too of the course. So I would take parents into the online course that we have. The online course that we use as the foundation for the coaching program has been licensed from an American-based academic coach and education expert. And so that course is very, very good. It has been used by thousands of students at this point, because different coaches around the world and different schools, in fact, use that study skills curriculum to teach their children or their students how to study effectively. So that's, so I show parents this, and then from there, they make the decision to enroll their children into Study Boost Camp. So that's the first conversation. And then once parents have seen the results from Study Boost Camp, many of them are like, okay, we've done this 7-day thing. We want to take this further. We want our children to actually develop the habits. I want my child to have your support for a little bit of time. And that's when we can now launch into the conversation of whether it's a good fit for a student to continue on with the annual coaching program, which is Study Boost Club. So for this year, the plan is to do Study Boost Camp in the last week of August, just to accommodate people's travel schedules, but also to start to set up the child or the student for the next school year. So we're not set on the dates yet, but the plan for now is for it to be the last week of August.
Right, great. So last week of August, dates to be communicated shortly, will be the Study Boost Camp. And that would be a great way to prepare the children for the next academic year. And you had mentioned earlier that the age group for this are children between the ages of 13 to 19.
Yes. Periodically, I would do Study Boost Camp for younger children on parent request, especially for students who are more advanced and are able to independently do their work on their own, or the parent is able to support them. So the curriculum can also work for younger students. It's not only for older students. So I think the amazing thing about this curriculum is that it's so adaptable to the level at which a person is. You will take away from it what the information that is relevant for you at the level that you are at. And if we came back next year and did Study Boost Camp again, these same students will still be able to deepen their knowledge and understanding further. They will now be able to use the tools in a more complex way, in a more mature way, in a deeper format that gives them even more results. But for younger students too, every once in a while, depending, because I don't want to exclude, I know that there are some very proactive parents who are like, I've heard this now, my child is in year 6 and I want them to do this program. Like, okay, wait, if your child is in year 6, please, can we wait till they're in year 7? We like for them to at least be in secondary school or in high school. So let's say that we can work with students that are in year 7, even though they might not be 13 years old.
Fantastic. And my last question, which is a bit funny, is, there are lots of adults who are returning to school, who have never learned how to study. And when you add the adult-sized brain and the challenges of life do you offer this, or have you ever considered offering this for adults who themselves, and I think we're also all lifelong learners now in a way. So a lot of people are changing careers, changing, what they went to school for is not what they're doing for work. Have you ever considered offering this for adults?
I have actually considered offering it to adults, especially adults who are working towards programs like project management professional, PMP, or they are working towards, some kind of accounting designation or CFA. This program helps adults too. For anybody who wants to learn how to study effectively, it's whether you're 60, like, you will learn that effective study process. Now, the decision to focus on students, again, like I said, was based on my own academic journey. From having that interest, because I went to various schools, I saw how my performance improved over time. The majority of my interest has been with working with students, and that's why I focus mostly on students. But this program can also be something that if a parent wanted to, they can do a self-taught program and then decide that, Ms. Dami, okay, I also want so we can enroll an adult in a program. They can take the program at their own convenience, and if they now then wanted to discuss it, also possible. But if we are going to work with an adult, it will be on a one-on-one basis.
Okay, that's fine. Fantastic. Thank you. This has been very, very insightful, very as a parent listening as well. I feel like there's a lot of things I've taken away in terms of things that we can do in our home environment to support a child to actually build on the skills that they require to not only get good grades, but to love learning, to maximize their potential, whatever that means, and to really have that mindset, that's a growth mindset that says, I can learn more, I can always be better. You know, I might not know it yet, but there's a way around it. I also love all the examples that were very practical that you shared. So for example, how many of them are really deepening their knowledge on their own and getting their teachers to support that deepening of knowledge. I doubt there's any teacher who's not going to be happy to find out that a student of his or hers is going home, consolidating their knowledge in a unique way, testing that knowledge and coming back to say, hey, can you help me in this area or not? And I think it's something that would make learning more enjoyable for everybody, you know? So
Yeah.
quite interesting. Very, I always love talking to you. So as we start to wrap up now, how can parents find you? So you've talked about your program coming up in August. So we'll be looking forward to having those dates so we can share it with the community to enroll. Because by the way, anybody who listens to it, I don't know why you won't enroll your child, like period. You know? But if parents,
Period. And I will reinforce that period, because once I, as a person, as an adult, was when I took the program. I had to take the student program and then the coach training program. And it was just like my eyes just opened, just like, wow. So this was the reason for the struggle. This was the reason for the limitation. And yet, can you believe that after I took this program, I applied the principles to my job interview preparation process. And that was how I was able to move from one level to and jump, because I was working in government, we have skills. And I jumped like 2 skills, a massive jump from, analyst to manager, because I had built my confidence. I had now realized how to structure information in a cohesive manner. And it was just a game changer for me. And it has been a game changer for me, even as an adult. So absolutely, if you're a parent that registers your child, please be curious enough to go and even watch the videos yourself, because they are very good. Certainly.
thanks, Dami. So wrapping up, how can people find you? What are the best ways to get in touch with you?
So we are on Instagram and we have a website. The best way to contact us would be to send an email to admin@studentinspired.com. So Student Inspired is the name of the brand. I think Yetty must have mentioned that. So admin@studentinspired.com, and there should be that information put on this video somewhere so that parents will be able to see that. You can also send a WhatsApp message or call us on 081 281 9622. 081 281 9622. So we're very responsive either via email, WhatsApp, call, or even phone call. Really just about the preference that we have as parents to be able to reach out. So our Instagram handle is student_inspired. Student_inspired. That's how you can find us on Instagram. And on the web, our web address is www.studentinspired.com.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, Dami, and explaining all the ways that parents can further support their children to develop skills, develop the right habits, and have the right mindset to succeed, excel, and transform their performance.